slay the monster. It'll
Yeah.
always be with you. But it's how, as you said, it's how you manage it that matters.
Do you ever feel like life's challenges make it hard to stay grounded and keep a clear mind? In this episode, I speak with Tanaye White, who's a mental health advocate and entrepreneur. We discuss how you can build a routine to overcome overwhelm and stay balanced. Tanaye also shares her journey through depression, ADHD, and the transformative impact of finding a structure that works. Welcome to Move Your Mind, where we uncover why you are holding yourself back from getting the life you want and what to do about it. With the help from high-achieving guests and experts in behavioural science, personal development, and the health and wellness space. Join us if you're ready to move out of your own way toward your ideal self. I'm your host, Nick Brax, and I've been working in the health and wellness space for the last 15 years, helping people find direction and gain the courage to take control of their life. My mission is simple: to help you learn everything that I wish I knew, so you can become your ideal self. Lacking guidance, I spent the majority of my youth feeling lost and disempowered, which led to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and substance abuse. Looking back, I didn't have the vocabulary to communicate what I was experiencing. And as a man, I didn't resonate with the emotional language used in traditional therapy. I didn't need to talk about my feelings. I needed tangible solutions to guide me toward building a life I was proud of. If you can relate, then this podcast is for you. In this episode, we discuss how to overcome overwhelm by creating a simple routine. If you're ready to take action and build a stronger mindset, then keep listening. Tanaye, so nice to meet you. Thank you for making the time to come on my podcast. We've got a mutual friend, Paul, and feel really happy to be able to sit here and finally talk to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to finally talk about mental health with you. I've heard so many good things.
Well, same with you, and love talking to a fellow mental health advocate. So we might start just by asking if you can give a bit of a background on yourself and how you came to be doing what you're doing now, just so our listeners can learn a little bit more about you.
Yeah, so hey, I'm Tanaye. This is such a pleasure to be here. But I am widely known as a Sports Illustrated model, but I also have a corporate side. I've worked in corporate America for over 10 years now in marketing. And so I've worked in aerospace, I've worked for US agencies, and now I am doing both. I like to call myself a Kim Possible of sorts. But mental health has always been a strong passion for me, simply because I suffer from depression and anxiety myself. I lost a dear friend to suicide at the age of 16. And it's just always been something that I carried with me. In the early years, I didn't know what exactly it was that I was feeling. Depression looks different, and for everyone. And for me, I was a young Black girl growing up in an all-white town in suburban Connecticut. And I thought I was alone, and I internalized a lot of my sadness and anger. And I think that's really what consumed me. But I use all of those experiences now to empower other young girls and women who are experiencing similar. I would love to develop a safe haven, and that's exactly what I did, which is what Feel Good Babe is, which is my startup that I founded 2 years ago to help them on their mental health journey.
I love that. And I mean, I think storytelling and, sharing your own experience is probably the most powerful way that we can help other people. And, like you're talking about there, I got into this through my own experience with depression and anxiety. And really because when I was at a really low point, the thing that helped me was being able to hear about other people that I could relate to that, went through it, and seeing that there actually was a road to get through it. There were ways to deal with it, because we can tell ourselves when we're in that situation that there's something wrong with us, that there's no way out, there's no path, and it can be so isolating. It can be a pretty dark place to be in. So I think it's so important, the work you're doing, and that you're using your own experience to try and help other people.
Thank
It
you.
really is. So what?
My goal is
Yeah.
if
Oh,
I can even save one life, then that's my life's mission. My life's mission is complete.
yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It's if you can even save one life, that's a huge impact you've made. So that's all that matters. And I'm sure you probably already have, and you'll probably save far more than one life. And probably even just coming on here, talking to our audience, I'm sure they'll take something out of it, something, so important. So for
I
you,
hope.
I'm sure. So what led to you initially with, the depression that you're talking about? What led to that? Was that something that was always there? And how did you initially find your way out of that? Or how did you start managing it?
Yeah, so I didn't start feeling symptoms of depression until I was around 12 years old. I know it was definitely middle school. I feel like that is such a pivotal time for preteens and young teens because, your body is changing. You have all of these hormones, all of these emotions, and you don't know where to place them. You don't know what to do with them. And I like to think that that's sort of what happened to me. I think my unique experience was the fact that there was a lot of cultural differences at play simply because I was one of just a handful of Black families in a nice, wealthy, suburban all white town. So, um, and I probably should have started with I was born in Baltimore, where it was, predominantly a Black community. It moved when I was 5 to Connecticut. Oh,
Right.
exactly. So there's like
Yeah.
this conflict, this mental conflict, because I was used to being around people just like me, and I instantly went into being the only. And my parents are so supportive, so loving, but they didn't understand what I was going through because my mom's from Baltimore and my dad's from the Bronx. Like, as long as you have a roof over your head, electricity, those are the things that really show that you're good. But those are the things to be grateful for because they've had
Mm.
experiences where they went without. And so it was very hard for them to understand a lot of the challenges I had. And it came to a point where I just wouldn't just tell anyone anymore, except for one close friend of mine. His name is Besnick. And he helped me through a lot because he was similarly going through a lot of challenges. So it was just sort of
Mm.
us two, sort of supporting each other. But ultimately, when I was 16 years old, 16 or 17, I had reached out to a guidance counselor because I had started crying in the middle of, I remember AP US history class. I started crying in the middle of the class. The teacher sent me down to the guidance counselor, and I told the guidance counselor that I had firmly decided that I was going to take my life that day. And
Wow.
she was very receptive of it. She made me feel very comfortable. And she asked me if she wanted to tell my parents or if I should. And I was terrified to tell my parents, but I was just sort of in like this tough position. So she did for me, and my parents set me down when I got home from school that day, and asked me what's going on. They noticed I've been, having outbursts and all these things. And I did tell them I'm depressed. And they acknowledged it and said they were going to help. Unfortunately, the help never came. I think that's another layer to my experience, too, is that a lot of the conversations around mental health, especially in Black or African American communities, do not exist.
Mm.
As they didn't, let's say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So, what I really love now is that I have the voice, I have the platform to highlight my own experiences. And I think that using myself as, for lack of a better word, a martyr to share my experiences about all of the challenges I've gone through. I know that my testimony is going to help someone because there's many other testimonies that I have heard that have helped me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I've, battled it my entire life. As I got older, I finally got into therapy, and I feel so much better. And now that I know there's hope at the end of the tunnel that I did not see a light at, I'm hell bent on making sure that no one else feels that way like I did.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that. And I think, yeah, it's great that you can talk so openly about it. And, it's such a difficult thing to go through. With initially how you're and sort of I grew up in a similar situation where, and I think so many of us from, our parents' generation, they hadn't been taught, about talking about, emotions, understanding mental health, and it was more about that hardline attitude of you just grit your teeth and push forward, and like you're saying, as long as you have a roof over your head or whatever it is. Did it sort of make you at that time? And it's not that the parents actually did anything wrong as well. They're only using the information that they've been given. They don't really have that education. But did that make you initially feel shame when you were struggling? And because I know for me, it really did, because I would have these conversations with my parents, and it was almost like I was screaming, wanting help, vocalizing it, but still not knowing, thinking that I was just weak, or that something must have just been innately wrong with me because I was finding life day to day so difficult. Did you feel sort of shame and those kind of things from that?
I think my initial reaction, as things were progressing, was confusion,
Yeah.
because I'm a person who's very analytical and I overthink a lot. And so oftentimes before I even say something, I've already thought of every scenario of what could happen before I even speak it. And so when I, tell anybody anything, including my parents, I'm hoping for the best, obviously. So I was very confused that I've gone over all of the details. I feel this way. This happened to me. This also happened. I don't know what to do with this. And I would express to them, like I'm really frustrated. And I don't think that they just understood the severity of how it was. When you have a child who comes home and says, I, felt, alone today at school, or nobody wanted to eat with me, or something like that. Every parent gets defensive. They want to protect you, but a lot of parents don't know what that looks like. What do you need? And my parents didn't know that, and I don't hold it against them. But I
Yeah.
think, again, being able to vocalize these experiences, especially from the perspective of the child who needed help. I have connected with so many parents who have thanked me for expressing or sharing my own testimony, because they have children who are going through similar from what they've heard from me. And now they know better what methods or avenues they can take to help their loved ones.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because we only know what we know. So, I think most people want to understand, but yeah, if we don't have that knowledge, we haven't been through it, then, we can only do so much. So to get to that point where, you turned up at school and you felt like, you had this thought of wanting to take your own life, what were
Mhm.
the feelings, I guess, to get to that point, or how were you trying to manage things, and how did it sort of get so extreme, I guess, to that level? For I think, it's important for anyone listening, especially our listeners. We have a lot of people that are often stuck and struggling like that and don't know what to do, and I think it can just spiral out of control. So how did it get to that level for you? If you're looking to make a change, to lose weight, to get toned, to gain self-confidence, all in just 24 minutes a day, then go no further. You can check out the Move Your Mind community by going to nickbrax.start.page.
I honestly think it was because I didn't have an outlet.
Yeah.
And I realized that it wasn't really important that my emotions, how do I say this? I realized that my emotions weren't as much as a focal point for a lot of people in my life, than my performance, my athletic abilities, my class intensity level. I was a stellar student. I, excelled in everything I did. And so I leaned into that more. So I leaned into sort of proving my worth. Like, oh, you don't like me, or, oh, you want to ignore me, or, oh, you want to bully me. Let me show you why you're wrong. And I think that's really what drove me to succeed. I still have a track and field record at my alma mater at high school.
Oh
So
wow.
tells you how hard I work. I'm just
There
saying.
you go. What event was this record in?
Long
What was
jump.
your main event? Long jump. Wow. Okay. Amazing. Amazing.
You. But that is where I really put my focus in when
Yeah.
it helped distract me. But two
Yeah.
things that really helped me through this time as well that I think are really important to highlight is music and my diary. Music has always played such an important role in my life. I think because I'm an empath, I just feel it and it just hits
Yeah.
me, strongly. And then I also love to write. And so I wrote so much and I wrote daily that I had a giant binder. Like, I mean, a 3-ring binder that you would get, for back to school season. And I would just write on each page. And at the end of each diary entry, I would write the song that I've had on repeat that day or even that week. So, it would be, I'd have my daily, entry. And then at the end, I'd put Speed of Sound by Coldplay.
Yeah.
So, like, I just have hundreds of entries of me expressing my sadness. But also, looking back at it now, it's very hard to read. But when I do look at the pages, I consider the songs at the end of each entry almost like a glimmer of hope. Like, the music was really carrying me. When I didn't know how to express my own feelings, the music expressed it for me. There were so many artists who put into sound what I could not verbalize. And so those are definitely two things that helped me, get through those days.
Yeah. Yeah. I think creativity is such an important thing to get through, this kind of thing. And I think just seeing a little bit of your story, it sounds like there's so many overlaps with my own story where I initially was, training to be a professional athlete and suffered from, depression and anxiety. That came to a climax when I had sort of, in my later years at school, and then I didn't know what I wanted to do, and have always had an active mind where, overthinking, and it leads to anxiety, and sport was my way to deal with that, trying to push myself to do something extreme because it was the only one time that my mind would actually stop thinking.
Right.
But it just wasn't sustainable. So then for me, moving forward, sort of getting into stuff in creative outlets for me has been such a huge thing. And acting I've been pursuing for, a number of years now. And that's probably like given me something that just is an ongoing outlet that I can use to, deal with a lot of the crazy thoughts that can go through my head. So sounds like a lot of crossovers there. Like, and I was interested to ask you, did sport feel at the time like that outlet for you when you were competing?
Most definitely.
And maybe not, maybe without even knowing that it was at that point, or I don't know, but
no,
or
I
you knew.
think honestly I've always known. Like, I've always enjoyed being active.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
on like school breaks, I would like go down to the basement, get my mom's old workout tapes, go put it in the VCR and just do workouts in the family room. Like, I've always been an active person and I've always had tons of energy. I would do backflips down the staircase in my childhood home. Like, too much energy. So definitely, I think also another creative outlet, and you just brought up something, you triggered something in my mind. So I lived for MySpace. Do you remember MySpace?
I do.
MySpace was like my pride and joy. I was so specific about having my music match my template theme, match my profile picture, and that is actually how I started teaching myself how to code, CSS, HTML. And it's also how I started photo editing with Photoshop, which is now two major things that are a part of my job today. So it's very funny that you say that, because I was like, what? I was creative too, a creative athlete.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then all those skills end up coming sort of into play later on. So I love that. So it sounds like you were sort of saying earlier you do a lot of different things. How do you manage that on a day-to-day basis?
Therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But seriously,
I can
but
relate.
also,
Yeah.
exactly. But I think also as a former athlete, and I'm sure you could attest to this, I've always been a person who likes structure. I like organization. I'm very much type A. I have like a giant calendar in my office that organizes every single day of the month.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to my experience with mental health, being able to, sorry, I just had a brain blank.
No problem.
Woo,
With
child, it's early.
It's early,
What was the question?
exactly. It's it's early. With managing all of the different things that you do, because yeah, I know well, for me, I've got ADHD, and it's been like a blessing and a curse because I've always done lots of different things, but then I can take on too many things. So it's sort of like about I've always had to reel back and then find, okay, what is the balance here where I can be ambitious and do the different things, but also make it realistic and manage it. So because I'll get overwhelmed otherwise, and then the anxiety and the overthinking gets worse. So it's sort of this very weird balancing act that you're constantly trying to, find how to manage.
Yes, you know what? I've been horrible at managing organization when it comes to a lot of the ideas in my head. And what
Yeah.
I would do is, as I got older, I would start writing less. I feel like our reliance on computers just really impacts how we think, how we operate.
Mm.
But now that I have automated my life and I start organizing all the tasks that I have, I actually use Monday.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know if
Monday's great.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
I use it for my personal and professional life, and it has literally changed how I operate and how I complete my tasks. Because similar to what you just said, I would have all of these ideas or all of these tasks, responsibilities, and I would get so overwhelmed with the thought of completing them that I would just almost freeze. Like, I don't want to do them. It's not that I don't want to, but I'm avoiding it. Like,
yeah.
it's just a big beast that I've formulated in my head that I just can't overcome. So therapy helped me with just understanding that I can't take on everything, similar to what you said, but also there are ways that you can make the beast look like just a small kitten if you just take all of your responsibilities bit by bit.
Exactly, exactly. It's so crazy how, and for me, it can, I've gotten a lot better. I used to be struggle with overwhelm to such a degree that sometimes I couldn't get out of bed or I couldn't get through the day. But I've gotten so much better at managing it now. But it's still I have to be so aware of it, and it's crazy where in a given day I could have so many things pile up that sound like what you're saying there, that beast where you're just seeing that this huge mountain that how do I get up that and do this and do that, and it's debilitating to the point where you feel like everything's chaotic, you're fucked, you can't get through anything. And then as soon as if I just sit down and think, Nick, just stop thinking about that, stop listening to yourself, just actually action off a couple of things, literally 5 minutes later, I'll be clear, and not only clear, just positive and pumped and thinking, so excited about taking over the world again. And it's
Yeah.
crazy the fine line with mental health, I guess, and with managing ourselves. I think a thing that I always try and reinforce to people is it's not like you try and recover from depression, anxiety, whatever it is. It's about managing it, because it's the same thing as saying, I want to start a fitness routine. If I wanted to lose weight, I want to do all these different things. And as soon as I lose the weight, I'm just going to stop. You'll probably put it back on. You need to find things you can manage long term to keep it under control. So it's a ongoing thing.
Exactly. And I always say depression doesn't have a finish line. Like, you're
Yeah,
never going to completely slay the monster. It'll
yeah,
always be with you. But it's how, as you said, it's how you manage it that matters. And I also want to say thank you for mentioning and sharing with me that you have ADHD, because it wasn't until 4 months ago that I also learned I have ADHD.
oh
Um,
wow, yeah,
which I think brings up a whole nother topic, because I'm 32 years old, and a lot of the experiences that I had with overthinking and anxiety and even anxiety attacks, they have all gone away since I've gotten on the right medication regimen. And I was terrified to even consider going on a medication for my mental health because I've never wanted to rely on a pill.
Yeah.
But, you know, after speaking with my psychiatrist and therapist as well, and, you know, testing out, what would work for me, a lot of the challenges I would have just getting through the day have disappeared. The brain fog, the difficulty getting up out of bed, the difficulty focusing, having to take a nap. I like to say power naps in the middle of the day because you're so tired. Like I'll use my lunch break to take a nap. Like it was so bad to the point where like I could not go one day without a nap. And that's never happened to me before. But ever since, I've discovered this, I feel so much better. And I think one of the reasons why I want to even share that is because I think a lot of people have negative associations with, their psychiatry and medication. And even me, myself, I can attest to that. But seeing the positives of being on it helps me realize that there needs to be more conversations about medication, how it can help. It's not always just a dangerous substance. There are meds that can help you and help your quality of life and how you feel about yourself.
Massively. No, it's crazy. Like, and my experience has been, very similar where I only got diagnosed a year and a half ago, I think it was, or 2 years ago with ADHD. And, I'm 37 now and I don't even know how many therapists, I've seen. Probably 20 plus, maybe 30 of them through my 20s. And a lot of it helped, but I felt like something innately wasn't right. No matter what I would do, I couldn't sit and just read, a one-page document. And my mind would be jumping and, all the things like what you're talking about there. And it was just so frustrating. So when I finally found out I've got ADHD, I was so relieved. I was like, thank you. Like this, now that we can try and deal with this, like I know what it is. And exactly like you're saying, I was so terrified of medication because I didn't want to have the reliance on it. I was so worried that it would change my personality or take away my creativity or whatever it was. But the crazy thing is, it's done the opposite. It's like actually allowed me to be more creative because my mind finally is calm enough that I can actually rationally do things. And, there was a period of sadness as well of thinking, why couldn't have this happened earlier? I wish I could have had, could have like, it's not like it would have completely eradicated my issues with mental health or whatever, but it would have, it would have saved a lot of trouble in a lot of areas. But yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there about, I think it's such a common thing where there's just such a stigma and such a fear about medication. And we need to change that. And on both sides, I think that whole area, I mean, we could talk all day about that, but I think there's another side of it where there's not an education about medication in general, and doctors can be trigger happy, or psychiatrists, and put people on anything. And I had this happen to me when I was younger, really struggling. I was seeing a doctor in Australia, I don't know what it's like here, but a doctor can prescribe you, and I didn't want to be on it, but they just put me on some random thing and it had an adverse effect and I went, straight off it. But you hear about that a lot as well, where I think there needs to be just more education across the board, more attention to care of deciding and working out what people, what their issue is, how to deal with it. But then also breaking down that stigma about, well, if it is going to help, then why not explore that? Because it can make such a big difference. So it's such an important thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, love everything you're talking about. What are some daily things? You've sort of alluded to some of them. What are some daily things you do to keep your mental health and well-being, just to look after yourself? Yeah, to keep yourself grounded.
I love answering this question because I have so many. So
good.
Every morning I start my day with a sound bath. So I don't have one myself, so I like to play it on Spotify, which does the job. And I, keep the peace, start the day off right. I feel positive going into the day. I always make sure that I take my lunch, and I'm very strict on myself now. Before I would like work into my lunch or do a working lunch. And I think that's just so unfair to myself and my mental capacity. So highly recommend for other people who like to overwork themselves sometimes, be very strict and disciplined about how you love on yourself too. And then at the end of every day, typically when it's warm out, because I hate winter, I like to call it a hot girl walk.
Yeah.
But it's just a walk. I live in Brooklyn, so I've only been here for 3 years, so I like to walk around the neighborhood to just get more familiar. But also at the same time, you're getting vitamin D, and I love the sun. I love getting a tan, so I feel like it's like a warm hug when I go for my hot girl walk.
That's the answer to mental health. Hot girl walks. No, I love that. I think having those routines are so important. It really is. I think it's
Exactly.
yeah.
And I'm sure we both are athletes, so we both know like how important just staying active is. And I'm not gonna lie, after I retired from track in college, I sort of had this aversion to working out for years.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to lecture anymore. We did 2-a-days, those early morning workouts, the traveling. I just wanted nothing to do with it. So I went years without really working out much. And then once I started getting back into it, it was hard for me to find my own way of working out that didn't remind me of like the really hard drills that I did, in college.
Yeah.
So it's taken me a lot of years to like find out what my thing is. And I think now I recognize that my thing is not having a thing.
Yeah.
Like growing up, I was a competitive cheerleader and a dancer, and I also did gymnastics for a year, and that just snowballed into me then finding track on off seasons, and then next thing you know, I'm breaking school records, and I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll stick to track.
Maybe I should.
Then.
Yeah.
But now as an adult, it's not like you're presented all of these options for you to work out. Like you jump rope and that's your thing. So I've been exploring what I like. So I rock climb. I'm a boulderer. I've been doing it for 1.5 years now. And I was doing it just to try it with a friend at first. And then I recognized how much I loved it. It's like a puzzle for your mind.
Are you interested in joining a community of like-minded people who are on the same journey as you are? Even though you're the one that needs to do the work, you don't have to go it alone. You can find all of the information at nickbrax.start.page. I love that. Well, MMA, probably similar thing where, like rock climbing, it's mental and physical. So it's all encompassing. So you sort of, like you're saying, those things are so good to just take you out of your head, and such a liberating thing to do. But I love the message you're saying there. Again, for anyone listening, like that's what we hear from a lot of our listeners, that they're wanting to, get into a workout routine, but don't know where to begin, can't stick to it, don't know how to find something that is sustainable. And I think the point you're saying there, number one, it has to be somewhat enjoyable, because if it just feels like a painful thing and a chore, you're not going to be able to make that into a routine. Like it needs to be something where you're sort of looking forward to it, or you can see the positive out of it, not just feeling like you're doing something painful. So I think, really important points. So anyway, we finish every episode with 5 closing questions. These can be sort of short answers or whatever comes to mind for you.
Okay.
The first one is, what's your best childhood memory that comes to mind?
Oh, my best. Oh, that's hard, because despite what I just told you on this podcast, I had a great childhood.
Yeah.
Best memory? I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to say my parents' wedding. They got married when I was 8.
Yeah.
And it was a blast. It was this huge wedding in Baltimore. It was just so good. And I've always dreamed of having a similar wedding one day.
I love that. What's your personal definition of happiness?
Well, I would love to quote Beyonce, who said happiness is a choice. But I also think that quote sort of takes away from the experiences that really are required to achieve happiness. So I will say for me, happiness is being able to wake up each day and see the sun and know that anything is possible. And so that's what I always try to tell myself every time I wake up. The first thing I say every time I wake up is, thank you, God, for allowing me to see another sun. And I think that gratitude goes a long way in just, setting the tone for how you want your life to be.
Hey guys, if you're enjoying this podcast, please click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram at NickBrax. I really appreciate your ongoing support.
Mental toughness is something that is built through depression or sadness or anxiety. That then you can use to protect yourself from people who are trying to do you harm. So even though depression has been such a burden on my life, I think there's surprisingly a few positives of it. Like, I know how to speak up for myself now. I know how to address someone when they're also going through a sad spell or need advice or an ear to listen to. There's a lot of ways that depression has built my empathy and my strength.
Yeah, exactly. Without going through that darkness, it'd be hard to have that level of empathy and understanding of yourself and all of these different things. And I think that is, a important message, especially in this day and age where, we live in a world where, we've got social media, everything's so fast paced, people want to get rich quick, get famous, whatever it is. Even if you could click your fingers and get everything given to you overnight, it won't mean anything. I think you need to suffer to be able to become the person you're meant to be and then appreciate, whatever it is that you get. Otherwise, there's not really a lot of meaning if you just got given things. So I think it's really important that we remind ourselves. Yeah.
The phrase, you reap what you sow.
Yeah.
I think that's a great, metaphor, right? Of how life is supposed to be. You have to sow it first before you can reap. People just want to reap, but you didn't do the work. There's no seeds in the dirt. You can't reap what you sowed yet.
Exactly. You've got to. There's no way around it. So, final one here. What are you most proud of?
Proud of? To be alive.
There you go. I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing that you are so positive. You're able to share your story. You're saying you've got that mission of helping save that one life. Like I said, I'm sure you've already saved far more than that. And I think it's just, you really never know who is getting something out of it when you talk about these things. And often you don't even hear, it's the people that we don't hear from that often do actually get benefit out of it. So such an important thing. Love everything you're doing. Where can our listeners go? We'll put this in the show notes, but where can they go if they want to learn more about you?
You can find me on virtually every social media platform at Tanaye Dubs, TanayeDubz.
Great. Well, anyone listening, it'll be in the show notes. Go and check out Tanaye. And yeah, thank you again, Tanaye, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanaye White, for joining me today and offering your insights. And thank you for listening. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode and any suggestions for topics you'd like to hear about. Feel free to leave a comment or just send a DM. Your feedback's always appreciated. Please don't forget to click the subscribe button, leave a like or comment, share with your friends, and follow me on Instagram. It really makes a difference. Thank you so much.